Hi everyone, so my name is Ashley Anderson. I'm a first generation college student and this is my story. First off, I would like to provide a trigger warning. I grew up in the Pismo Beach area and this is where a lot of this story is going to take place. As I was growing up, playing computer games and always being interested in technology, toy race cars, video games, etc. Basically, the environment was not a good one to grow up in. My mom and dad were alcoholics. Almost every night became a nightmare that riddled me with anxiety and panic. Could never do anything after school. Parents had to start their drinks at 4 to 5 p.m., sometimes earlier. Yeah, sometimes they'd start drinking at like 2 or 3 p.m. Those nights were the worst. Mom would wait on dad like a servant and he'd get angry if something wasn't how he wanted it. Yeah, big time. When he'd get home from work, he'd go sit in his big recliner chair all night. He'd get up to go to the bathroom, but besides that, he wouldn't do anything else except watch TV. And my mom would wait on him hand and foot to make him drinks, food, whatever, pretty much all evening. As the night went on, they got more and more drunk and things like that. All kinds of crazy shit would happen, from just yelling to physical altercations. I saw plenty of that physical abuse towards my mom, and I always thought it would happen to me. It never did, but I was still always very afraid it would. Really awful, crazy stuff. The cops, like, being called on them. I remember this one time, my dad, like, took the car and he was arrested and the car was impounded or something. And so I had to, like, figure out a way to school. I had to walk or get a ride from a friend. I can't remember what I ended up doing. I was in 2nd or 3rd grade at the time. And, or like there's this other time when I think my dad like called the police or no, the neighbors must have. And then my dad like told the cops that it was her fault, and then the cops came in my bedroom and questioned me and stuff, and then they ended up taking my mom away. And so I was just there with my dad, like totally terrified. I thought he was going to like do something to me. Nothing ever happened. My mom came home in the morning and helped me get ready for school. As I remember growing up and, you know, as I went through puberty and all that stuff, I remember my dad always making like really weird comments. Another reason why I was always afraid of him. Weird comments as in like, I hate saying this, but if you know, then you know. Weird comments about my body as I grew up. Yeah. Or he'd make like weird comments to my mom about me like when I left the room, thinking I couldn't hear, but I could. Yeah, and so when I was in elementary school, towards the end of 4th grade, my dad lost his job and we had to live in a campsite, and it was very hard being homeless, especially with parents like that. We lived in a tent going from campsite to campsite. We maxed out all the campsites, and once we did that, we had to stay in a motel, and yeah, things were just really awful. We lived in a tent at campsites for nearly 2 years. I never told anybody, nobody ever knew, and it was just so awful because I didn't have a place to go. I didn't have my own room, nothing. We just had a family tent that we shared, and I definitely heard and saw more physical and sexual abuse of my mom during this time. But yeah, it's just never, like, the situation was already bad, and now it was just even worse, because it's not like you can separate, you know. I mean, you can go outside, but what, are you gonna sleep out there like in wintertime when it's raining? No. I'm looking at my notes. So yeah, just throughout all the way up until my dad got sick, honestly, like, all this horrible stuff happened. Just all this physical, emotional, like, psychological, manipulative, controlling abuse always going on. Just so many horrific sightings and experiences. There was this, like, one time I remember when we were living in a campsite in Oceano, and I was in the tent playing GameCube. I was playing Super Mario Sunshine. My dad had hooked up a TV and my GameCube in the tent because we had electric on the site, and I was able to play. Anyways, I was in the tent playing. My parents were outside around the campfire. They were, like, talking to the neighbor, and then all of a sudden I heard the neighbor guy say, "Hey, do you want me to call the police?" And then I was like, what the heck? And so I paused and I was listening, and then all of a sudden, I of course also had to go to the bathroom. But all of a sudden, like, my parents come, like, rushing inside the tent, and then I'm like, you know, Mom, I need to go to the bathroom. And my dad was like, you know, like, go to bed, go to sleep, go to bed now. Even though, like, I said, like, please, I have to go to the bathroom. He's like, no, go to bed, go to bed. And so I just turn the other, like, lay down and face the other way and go to bed. And then, like, only, like, a few moments later, yeah. It's just, like, stuff that still haunts me now. That's just, like, it's just so terrifying as a child. Not even being 10 feet away from what happened. It's just crazy because no one ever knew. Nobody still knows. I mean, except me and my mom didn't want to do it. She didn't want to. But my dad forced her because he was pissed and drunk and whatever. And I mean, she was drunk too, but he was so mean and so violent when he was drunk and so angry, and things just pissed him off so easily. And so he raped her in that tent with me, like not even that far away, and I was awake, and I was like, what the hell is going on? And I remember just like turning over very slowly. I mean, at this point I was in 5th grade, or I might have started 6th grade. I think I was still in 5th grade though. Yeah, so I was not even 12 yet. I remember like turning over slowly in my sleeping bag and like just slightly, just ever so slightly, like cracking my eyes, and then just like seeing just like pure horror to a 11-year-old. That morning I like just wet my sleeping bag, like totally soaked. My mom was next to me. My dad was on the other side. I remember I had gone to sleep in my jeans and they were just totally soaked. I remember getting up super early in the morning, like when the sun had like barely gotten up. Slowly, like getting out of my sleeping bag as quiet as I could, because I was so terrified of waking up my dad, waking up my mom. I thought the magnitude of like me like wetting my sleeping bag was like so bad on top of what had happened last night. And so I just, as quietly as I could, I laid out my jeans outside to dry. And then I got back into the tent, really quiet, really slow. And then my sleeping bag, I folded it so that it was closed and I laid on top of it. I had to go to school that morning. It was awful. I mean, that's not even like the only thing that happened either. I remember witnessing my dad like get on top of my mom and strangle her like a few times. I remember I was so terrified when I opened my bedroom door and I saw my dad on top of my mom doing that. I just involuntarily screamed like I'd never screamed before. Slammed the door, and I couldn't stop like the horror in my mind. I remember hearing my dad threaten to hurt my mom with serious violence, like ripping out her hair. I remember one time he like bit her finger like extremely hard, and my mom was like crying and super upset about that. I mean, shit, like who else wouldn't be? Or threatening to smash her nose with a thick hardcover book. I remember like one night trying to get help with my homework, and I had like gone to the bathroom, and as I was walking away, my dad was like threatening my mom with like my math book or something. Or it was like one of those old encyclopedias, or I don't know. It was something like that though. Or my dad locking my mom outside late at night. And then her banging on my bedroom window asking if I'm okay. And to come out of the window and then we can go to grandma's. I remember one time I was waking up for school when I was in elementary school and finding a broken door, like totally like broken off the hinges and like punched in, and like the living room was just like, I don't know, like ransacked and like just totally all messed up, like I don't know, just like destroyed. And like the kitchen too, just like totally all like messy and not normal. Plenty of nights, my mom trying to hide in my room, hiding from my dad and telling me that she's terrified of him and just like asking me if she should leave him and that we could live with grandma. After finally getting a home, problems continued through middle school and high school. I had great grades, so all of the high school counselors thought that I'd be fine. I had no guidance from my parents though. My dad didn't even graduate high school. My mom did, but she dropped out of community college because she had my sister. Growing up, I remember seeing commercials for ITT Tech, and I thought it was so cool because the people on the commercials were always like tinkering with computers or like doing something cool with technology, and not even knowing what engineering was. I just thought that was the coolest thing ever, and that was like what I really wanted to do. When I got into high school, I was always really shy to share that, but that's honestly what I lived for. I thought it was just the coolest thing. Especially since I grew up like playing computer games and video games. I just loved that stuff. But due to a lack of exposure, I had no concept of what engineering was. My first boyfriend thankfully convinced me to go to community college after I graduated high school because I had absolutely no plan of what to do. My parents didn't care if I went to college. They just always said that no, they can't afford it, and like if I wanted to go, I had to figure it out on my own, or they didn't care. Because at that time when I was graduating high school, my dad was also sick, and it wasn't long until he would pass away. So he ended up passing away from a rare cancer called multiple myeloma, and he actually passed away in our house. It was really hard and crazy. In 2011, he fell twice. There was blood on the carpet, and then he finally just stopped, laying face down in my parents' bedroom. Called 911. I called 911 as I heard him falling, but they didn't pick up until after he was already face down. And the operator wanted us to make sure he was breathing or not, and my mom and I had to flip him over, and he was 6'5", over 300 pounds, so it was hard, but we managed to. And when we did, his eyes and mouth and nose were purple, like bluish purple, like really, really almost black, like really dark bluish purple, and his just like pale white. After they did CPR on him for 20 minutes or so, they took him to the hospital, put him on life support for 2 days, and after the second day, my mom decided to end it. So when he passed away, things with my mom got unbearable. I tried to escape a bad home life, but I traded it for a worse one. While trying to make progress in school, like during this whole time, I like all my time in college, ever since starting community college, I always worked full-time or like almost full-time jobs, and it was hard, very hard, tired all the time. While trying to progress in school, I moved in with someone I thought would help me. However, he was extremely abusive and controlling. He would fight with me so I couldn't do my homework. He would fight and delay me getting to work, which got me fired one time. And he just wouldn't let me leave sometimes. I couldn't have any friends. I couldn't, like, without him knowing about it, I couldn't do anything. It was awful. whenever I would try and get my own place and stuff like that, like, he would not allow it. Even though that was my plan in the first place, was to, like, after 6 months, like, get a job and save up for my own place, but the story was much different when I got there. I thought of suicide. There just seemed to be no escape, and I even planned it out several times. But because I was afraid that it wouldn't work, I never followed through with it. Eventually, my mom and sister came back to help me escape after a lot of damage had been done. Yeah. That's in a nutshell. Moved back to Bakersfield and finished my associates in business. I transferred to CSU Bakersfield. As a result, I was finally exposed to engineering, and I realized it's what I wanted to do all along. At this point, I was 23 or 24. So during my time at CSU Bakersfield, I originally intended to be a business information systems major, but the university, because they were switching from quarter to semester, they stopped offering that major for whatever reason. So I didn't know what to do at all. I went to the counseling office for business majors, and I asked them, I told them I loved computers and things like that, and that, like, I kind of like business, but I really didn't know. And then they're like, well, if you love computers, then why not try computer engineering or computer science? And I responded with just fear and just being scared, because I had never done anything like that before, and I was always too afraid to dive into anything STEM, because I was taught that it was just, like, too impossible and too hard, and I had never known anyone that did that before. So they recommended I go over to the Natural Science and Mathematics Engineering Center, where I could go and see a counselor for engineering to just try it out and talk about it. So with just utter fear in my gut, I make my way over there. I get an appointment with a wonderful advisor named Jamie, and she signs me up. She changes my major to computer engineering, and she signs me up for my first ever engineering classes. An intro to engineering class, a math class, a C++ class, and I believe that's all I took there. And so immediately fell in love with the intro to engineering course, but I even more fell in love with the C++ course. I thought it was just so amazing and so fun, learning the language of computers. It was just so invigorating for me and refreshing. And even before that, when I was doing orientation of CSUB, we took a tour of this place called the Fab Lab. And this is short for fabrication lab, but they had all these computers and 3D printers in there, and they're doing these cool projects and stuff for the school, and I just thought it was just so amazing and, like, fun, and I wanted to be part of it so badly. I didn't even care what they were doing. And I was the only one in the tour group to be that excited, and people just kind of gave me strange looks and just kept on walking, but I loved being in there so much. And so that was, you know, after that, I sat on a bench in the, like, one of the courtyards there, and I was just, like, really thinking, like, long and hard, you know, like, being, like, going at it for this long. I I never really tried that hard in high school. Even like on paper, I graduated with a 4.2. It wasn't anything. It was easy. I mean, I always joked about basically sleeping through my business degree. I mean, it's true. I mean, I never read a textbook. I never had to study. It was easy. And I just decided that like what I wanted out of this life was just a real challenge. Like, I wanted to know what it felt like to sweat blood and really try, and like I wanted to be able to leave this earth knowing that I gave it my best shot, and I really wanted to make a difference and do something to either help people or help change the world for better, or invent something that could really help people. I don't know. I just wanted to do something like that. And yeah, that's how I got my start into engineering, and it was the greatest thing I ever did. It literally changed my life when I switched my major. When I went back to Bakersfield College, I found this amazing organization called SAMHSA, and I was able to learn even more about engineering and get paired with really cool mentors from Era Energy, and just meet all sorts of amazing people, and it helped me so much when like navigating that type of space alone would have been nearly impossible. I transferred back to Bakersfield College and started engineering coursework. However, due to very poor funding, no tutors for engineering or math coursework. I mean, there were, but there weren't. Yeah. It was really normal for people to fail a class 2 to 3 times before passing. I struggled with a lot of friends that I had in those classes. Classes, were canceled frequently. And during that time, I had changed jobs. I'd always maintained a job throughout this whole thing. Always worked. During that time, I got in a new job with Nabisco. I had to balance going to class at night while getting up in the morning at 3 or 4 a.m. to work all morning and all afternoon for Nabisco. But during this time at age 25, when I turned 25, I learned a lot about myself, my life, and desires, and started to be comfortable for the very first time. I got into a healthy relationship, finally, and I'm now married. However, it's not just an easy, happy ending. My partner and I made a decision for me to focus on school full-time so I could graduate in a reasonable time frame. However, I still face huge administrative obstacles, including mismatched academic history from many schools, out-of-order classes, and trying to schedule without further delays. We're financially tight, sharing one income and trying to focus on learning. When I was 27, I started taking advantage of access to healthcare and therapy, learning the extent of what conditions I had and like why I was struggling so much, and why like I couldn't pass certain classes and things like that. So learning about what PTSD was, what depression was, anxiety, instead of just ignoring those, pushing through those for the sake of survival, has been really life-changing. Having a chance to reflect now and try to heal is both a blessing and very painful. Before, I could keep going on adrenaline alone, but now it's a slower learning and growing process. On top of that, every year since 2017, I have lost a family member or close family friend due to a wide variety of circumstances. One from alcoholism, one from smoking, one from a combination of diabetes, COPD, and really a bunch of other like strange conditions that we thought at the time were a result from the Vietnam War. Losing my grandma to I can't remember why, but yeah. And just to reiterate, I've always been ashamed about my past, and I've never shared this story with anyone besides my partner and therapist until now. Now, having the help I need to succeed and being ultimately committed to making it feels so good. And knowing that like I really can do it. I have always loved learning about the universe, technology, engineering, and how things work. And I would have never thought that that girl from the beach who had been through so much could be here today. When I turned 29 last December, I was like, whoa, what? 29? I honestly didn't think I'd make it this long.